All right, so have you ever been staring at some ancient painting or sculpture and suddenly you see it? Something that's just not right. Something that looks like it jumped straight out of our time and into the past. Well, today we're diving headfirst into one of the wildest mysteries out there, the idea that time travelers have been leaving their mark in ancient art. I know, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, right? But just think about it for a second. What if artists, for centuries, weren't just painting their world? What if, maybe without even realizing it, they were capturing little hints of our world too? Little breadcrumbs left by visitors from the future. That's exactly what we're going to dig into. Okay, let's kick things off with our first piece of evidence. We're going way back to ancient Greece, around 60 BC. Take a look at this. It's a funerary relief called the grave Niskos. Now look really close at what the servant is holding. It looks for all the world like a modern laptop, doesn't it? I mean, the resemblance is just uncanny. And get this, some people swear you can even see what look like USB ports along the side. How crazy is that? Now let's fast forward, and I mean really fast forward, about 1700 years. We're in 1670, looking at a painting by the Dutch master Peter de Hooch. Just look over there in the corner. You see that person? They're holding a small rectangular object. I mean, come on, that is a dead ringer for an iPhone. The way it's held, its shape, even the way the other person is staring at it, it's just so familiar, it's almost spooky. And believe me, it gets even weirder. So now we're in the late 1500s. An artist named Ventura Salimbeni paints this piece, the glorification of the Eucharist. And floating right there between Jesus and God is this thing. It's a big, metallic-looking sphere with two antennas sticking out of it. And you know what it looks exactly like? The Sputnik satellite. You know, the one that wasn't launched until almost 400 years after this was painted? Yeah, let that sink in. So, you see, these aren't just a couple of weird, one-off oddities. The more you look, the more you find. A pattern starts to emerge. It's like we're opening up these ancient case files, and each one adds another piece to a puzzle that's scattered across centuries. It really makes you question everything you thought you knew about time. Let's just walk through this timeline, because this is where it gets really interesting. We start with that Greek laptop way back in 100 BC. Then, bam, a satellite pops up in Renaissance Italy. After that, we get this whole series of what really look like smartphones showing up in 1670, then again in 1860, and even in a mural in the US from 1937. We're talking about a pattern that spans thousands of years. This just feels like it's way more than some artist's imagination running wild. You know, when you lay it all out like this in a case file, you really see how specific these details are. We're not just talking about some blurry, ambiguous shape in the background. We're talking about a quote-unquote laptop that seems to have ports, a satellite with actual antenna, and several paintings where people are holding these devices in that classic pose. You know the one, head down, thumb scrolling. These are real, tangible things we can all look at and analyze for ourselves. Okay, so as you can imagine, things like this have kicked off a huge debate. In one corner, you've got the skeptics and the art historians, and they've got their official explanations ready to go. And in the other corner, you have the believers, who are pointing at the art and saying, look, the evidence is right there, you can't ignore it. So let's step into the courtroom and hear both sides of the story. All right, so the biggest argument from the skeptic side comes down to one word, pareidolia. It's a fancy term for something we all do. It's when our brain tries to find familiar patterns in random things. You know, like seeing a face in the clouds or a bunny in a piece of toast. The argument here is that we're so used to our modern tech that our brains are basically tricking us into seeing laptops and smartphones in what are really just old, ambiguous objects. But this is where the real back and forth begins. The skeptics say, oh, that's just a wax tablet or a jewelry box or maybe a prayer book. But the believers immediately fire back and ask, okay, but since when do jewelry boxes have ports? And that posture, does that look like someone reading a book? Or does it look exactly like someone scrolling through their phone with their thumb? The skeptics call it all a big coincidence. The believers say, no way. These artists were masters of realism. They painted what they saw. And here's the kicker. Even the official sources admit that their explanations don't quite add up. The Getty Museum, the actual home of that Greek laptop sculpture, has put it on record that the object is too shallow to be a jewelry box. So when the people in charge are basically shrugging and saying, our explanation isn't great, well, that just makes the mystery even more compelling, doesn't it? So this naturally brings up some big questions, right? Like, why the cloak and dagger? Why wouldn't a time traveler just, snap a selfie? Well, the theory goes you'd want to be stealthy to avoid the butterfly effect. You wouldn't want to change history. And for anyone thinking, this is just Photoshop. No, these are all real verified artworks sitting in museums today. And what about physics? Well, funnily enough, most physicists will tell you that time travel, while incredibly hard, isn't actually impossible in theory. So maybe, just maybe, these paintings are the evidence.
At the end of the day, though, it's not just about whether you're a believer or a skeptic. I think the real question is, why are we so fascinated by this stuff? Why does this idea have such a strong hold on us? I think it's because it's way more than just some crazy internet theory.
The real magic here, I think, isn't about proving once and for all that time travel is real. It's about what the possibility does to us. It makes us look at a 2,000-year-old sculpture and see something new. It forces us to question our whole understanding of history and time. It's a powerful reminder that maybe, just maybe, the universe is a lot weirder and more amazing than we give it credit for. And that feeling, that sense of wonder, it has a real-world impact. It gets people curious, right? It makes you want to look closer at art you might have just walked past before. It kicks off debates among scientists, and it totally inspires creativity. Suddenly, these old paintings aren't just dusty relics on a wall. They're living, breathing puzzles that we can all try to solve together. But you know what the best part is? You don't have to just sit back and listen to me talk about it. The evidence is out there for all of us to see. You can actually join the hunt yourself. You can become a time detective, sifting through history for clues that have been hiding in plain sight for centuries. So, you want to start your own investigation? It's easier than you think. Go to the websites for places like the Getty or the Rijksmuseum. They have amazing high-resolution images. Just start exploring. Zoom all the way in. Look for those little details that just don't fit. And if you find something, put it side by side with a modern gadget and see what you think. Then, go post your findings on a forum like Reddit. Become part of the conversation and help crack this thing wide open. And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? If these anomalies are real, if they're actual clues left behind by people traveling through time, it just makes you wonder, what else is out there, hiding in plain sight? What other impossible secrets are just staring us in the face, waiting for someone to finally see them?